Welcome to some Ramos Mazes End. I hope you're excited for Mazes End. It's a really fun deck. I had a lot of fun playing it. But before we jump into the deck, let's go and start off with Ramos. So we have Ramos, Dragon Engine. He has flying. Whenever you cast a spell, put a +1 counter on Ramos for each of that spell's colors. Then remove 5 +1 counters from Ramos. Add double Wooburg to your mana pool. Activate this ability only once each turn. Now, this deck is not a Ramos-focused deck. Ramos is more of a support commander in that this is 5-color lands. We're looking to get as many lands on the battlefield as possible. We can churn out Ramos a lot quicker than normal, but we're not using a lot of stuff that focuses on his +1 counters. One of the main things that we're going to use Ramos for is a little bit of it's more of a support commander. You know, we have a few spells in here, which I'm going to cover later on, that allow us to kind of dump a bunch of extra mana in there to kind of secure us an alternative win condition other than lands. But I've wanted to build a 5-color lands deck for a long time, and Ramos, they printed Ramos. I was like, all right, let's go, man. Let's have some fun. So let's jump into it. So our win condition is Mazes End, and that revolves around guild gates. So we have 5 guild gates, another 5 guild gates, and then we have Mazes End. So with Mazes End, it says for 3 mana, tap, return Mazes End to its owner's hand, search your library for a gate card, which is one of these 10 lands, then shuffle your library. If you control 10 more gates with different names, you win the game. Long story short, this is we're trying to get all 10 guild gates onto the battlefield and have 3 mana to activate Mazes End to go for a win condition. When I was testing this deck, I accidentally forgot that I thought it was just a triggered ability. Once you had all 10 lands on the battlefield, you won. No, you have to pay 3 mana to get it activated. And my opponent goes good game, and I go good game, and we just kind of sat there staring at each other. And then I was like, oh, uh-oh, I have to go for an activation. So you have to go for the activation to get the actual win itself. So just a little bit of a note on that one. But yeah, so this is a lot of fun. I've always been intrigued by Mazes End. I got in during Return to Ravnica, so finally build a Mazes End deck. It's a lot of fun. Now, one of the ways that we can really kind of make sure that we get all the 10 guild gates on the battlefield is by using a card like Scapeshift and Amulet of Vigor. With Scapeshift, it's to sacrifice any number of lands, search your library for that many lands, put them on the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Now, we have to worry about that 3 mana and Mazes End coming into play tapped. With Amulet of Vigor on the battlefield, whenever a permanent comes into the battlefield tapped, we get to untap it. So let's say that we've gotten in the spots where we've got 5 guild gates on the battlefield, and then we have 5 other lands, or excuse me, 6 other lands. We go for Scapeshift, we sacrifice those 6 lands, we have Amulet of Vigor on the battlefield. Those 5 guild gates come into play tapped, but they untap because of Amulet of Vigor. Mazes End comes into play tapped, untaps because of Amulet of Vigor. So there's going to be your mana to activate Mazes End and bounce it back to the hand. Now, outside of going for a Mazes End win with Scapeshift, we are running another win condition in the deck, and that's Valakut. With Valakut, it says whenever a mountain enters the battlefield under your control, if you control at least 5 other mountains, you may have it deal 3 damage to target creature or player. Now, once we get Prismatic Omen onto the battlefield, lands you control are every basic land type in addition to the other types. Basically, for the purpose of this deck, it turns all of our lands into mountains. If you use Scapeshift, you have Prismatic Omen on the battlefield. You Scapeshift for any amount of lethal lands. Really, as long as you're searching up 6 or more lands, you'll have enough damage to do some stuff. And especially if you're playing 1 versus 1 commander, all you need to do is get to 10 lands, and then you'll be online for a lethal 30 damage between Valakut coming down. We're also running Bring to Light in the deck, which basically acts as a second copy of Scapeshift, or really any other sort of utility spell that you need for the deck. Now, outside of the land win conditions for the deck, here's some of the tutors that we have. We have Hour of Promise, which is a new card. Search your library for up to 2 land cards put on the battlefield. We don't really worry about the deserts part. We're not running any deserts. But basically, with Hour of Promise, this is I'm going to cover it here in a second, but we are running Dark Depths and Thespian Stage in here. So with Hour of Promise, we have 5 mana 20/20 basically we can put on the battlefield, or we can use it to kind of search up Mazes End and start getting our activations going from there. Sylvan Scrying, Reap and Sow. These are all great cards that put a land card into our hand or onto the battlefield. That's the main thing, is that it's not just searching up a basic land. We need the exact land card that we need. Outside of that, Crop Rotation and Realms Uncharted. Especially with Realms Uncharted, if you have Life from the Loam, Realms Uncharted is basically just tutor up 4 lands and put them into your hand, kind of. That's 2 going to the graveyard, and then you can bring it back with Life from the Loam. So all of these are just wonderful cards in the deck. Outside of these main tutor spells, we are running a few utility tutors. We have Expedition Map, Diabolic Revelation. We're looking to get as many lands onto the battlefield as possible, and so we can actually use Diabolic Revelation to either search up a win condition, or we can actually just kind of finish out the gates. Let's say that we've gotten 6 gates on the battlefield, we need 4 more. We can just tap out with Diabolic Revelation, and then hopefully start making our land drops from there. And we're also running Clear the Land, which is just, I love this card. It's a lot of fun. We're running like 43 lands in here. So to go for Clear the Land, usually your opponent's going to get maybe 1 or 2 lands on the battlefield. We're going to get in the neighborhood of 4 to 5. And I don't know, it just feels really good to put this down on turn 3. And the next thing you've got like 6 lands on the battlefield. Ah, love it. Now, outside of the miscellaneous land stuff, I will go and cover the alternative land winning condition that we have, and that's going to be Dark Depths and Thespian Stage. So, with Dark Decks, it comes into play with 10 ice counters on it. We can remove an ice counter from it, but if we go for a Thespian Stage activation, it becomes a copy of target lands and gains this ability. It's going to become a copy of Dark Depths, and they're both going to be the same legendary card, so we're going to choose to keep the copy Thespian Stage because it has no counters on it. Once we do that, we end up with the 2020 Merit Lage token on the battlefield, flying and indestructible. Yes, indeed. So this deck can really attack on multiple fronts, but at least having 3 consistent land win strategies between Maze's End, Scape Shift, and then at least Dark Depths and Merit Lage kind of go beat sticks with the token, it can really put some pressure on your opponent. Now, outside of the land combo that we're running from the deck, one of the things that really holds the glue to this deck together is these creatures allow us to make additional land drops. We're running Oracle, Mina, Azusa. Each one of these cards have some sort of either library manipulation or allows us to play an additional land. We're also running a Primeval Titan, and the Hydra, which allow us to tutor up lands specifically out of our deck. Toss in a little Tooth and Nail if you can have a little bit of fun. Prime time in the Hydra, getting that down, going for Maze's End. I'll tell you, it never gets old casting Prime Time and then searching up guild gates. It's just like, feels good. Some good magic right there. Now, yeah, it's just usually you're used to Valakut coming down or some sort of Dark Depths that's being staged. No, we've got Prime Time grabbing guild gates. That's pretty fun right there. Now, outside of the land creatures that we're running in here, we're also running Life from the Loam and Crucible of Worlds. These are some great, just basically land permanent cards. Well, Life from the Loam's not a permanent card, but it's really good and that we can keep dredging our library, getting into the graveyard, bringing those land drops out. And especially once we're dredging Life from the Loam, we have Crucible Worlds on the battlefield. We can start playing those lands, especially if we have Azusa on the battlefield. It just turns into a really good land generating engine. We're also running Horn of Greed and Splendid Reclamation. Horn of Greed, you will be drawing a ton of cards if you get down one of your creatures that allows you to make extra land drops, or simply just making your land drop each turn, drawing a card. You're really going to have a full hand each time, and you'll be able to ramp really quick with that. And then also Splendid Reclamation is just kind of like a one-time use Crucible of Worlds of bringing a bunch of spells back, a bunch of lands at once, which is always a lot of fun. Now, outside of the utility spells, we're also running Knight of the Reliquary and Retreat to Coral Helm. We're not running this is mainly a Sultai based deck. We are splashing for all the colors, but at its core, it's Sultai. So we do have a high amount of forest in here. So in a pinch, we can use Knight of the Reliquary to sacrifice a forest for planes and search our library for a card. And once it enters the battlefield, we can untap that creature with Retreat. Now, as far as how many times we're going to go for an activation in a turn, it's, not going to have that many, but the interaction does exist in the deck, and I just at least wanted to highlight it. Now, outside of Knight of the Reliquary, we do have a few alternative win conditions if we can't go for some wins, some land wins. We have Villainous Wealth, which is a great way to get Ramos onto the battlefield, get those counters going, and then exile your opponent's library. Feels good. Door to Nothingness. I did get a Door to Nothingness win in my practice, not recorded, but in my practice, and it feels just as good as Maze's End. And then Torment of Hellfire. We're making so many land drops so that you get in the spot to where even if Torment of Hellfire doesn't take care of your opponent, simply just casting it for 10 or 12 can be really debilitating to your opponent and really kind of set them back on as far as resources go. Now, and we're also running Rampaging Balos. Rampaging Balos, it's basically just a land drop machine. When we start making land drops, we'll get those full 4 beast tokens. And then Damia actually works really well in the deck. Once we get to the point where we're at 7 mana, most of the time we've exhausted our hand, so it allows us to kind of refuel our hand with 7 cards and then still make those additional land drops and anything like that, or just simply allowing us to find a tutor to find Scape Shift or something like that to kind of allow us to win. Now, that is the deck in a nutshell. We have lands, we have alternative win conditions, we have Ramos. It's a lot of fun. I do apologize, this is not a Ramos-centric deck. Ramos is definitely more of a support commander. We will have some games where we don't get Ramos down, and I do apologize about that. But sometimes a commander, you gotta have some fun sometimes, and I didn't want to go full throttle Ramos. I wanted to build 5-color lands or something to kind of just, as new cards get printed, something to kind of put cool land cards into that deck. So I do have 3 gameplay videos up for you right now. Check them out, have some fun, and if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. Thanks. Bye.